Everyone, and a warm welcome to part 2 of the retrenchment/workforce reduction webinar. We had part 1 of this webinar last week. If you have missed it, please, you can find the recording on the Shadowmatch events calendar on any of our Shadowmatch websites. The recording is already on the calendar. Today's recording will also be placed on the calendar. You would have noticed that we are recording, and that's just for the purpose of adding this to our resources on our information website, as well as send it to people that cannot attend today and that have requested the recording. My name is Lizette de Villiers. I'll be the host for the session today, and I will shortly hand to our presenters, Peter de Villiers, the Head of Research and Marketing at Shadowmatch, and Suzanne Conradi, our General Manager at Shadowmatch. As always, the administrative arrangements, your microphone is currently on forced mute. It will remain like that for the presentation. And towards the end of the webinar, I will enable the setting for you to unmute yourself. We will stop the recording first, and then I will allow you to unmute, and then you are welcome to engage in questions or just sharing stories or just making some comments. From my side, that's all. Thank you very much and enjoy this session. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Lizette. I think Lizette got mixed in her words. I'm responsible for research and development, not research and marketing. I think she gave me part of her job in the meantime, and I have a surprise for her. I'm not going to do it. But thank you very much, Lizette. Welcome, everybody. I will share my notes with you so that we can immediately start with the work and not waste too much time. And then we will proceed once we have our notes. So the wording for this webinar is retrenchments, the word that we use in Southern Africa. In the rest of the world, they talk about staff reduction or employee reduction or layoffs. So these are the words that's being used elsewhere. And if you are from elsewhere, then obviously with retrenchment, staff reductions and layoffs, we talk about the same activity or exercise in a business. In the previous session, we spoke about the psychology of and the impact, and what is the impact of this on the business, the clients, those who stay behind and those who left. What we will do today is we will have a look at the moment of retrenchment, the moment of layoffs, the moment of notice. And we will then discuss quickly what it entails and what the end fallout of this normally is for those that are being influenced. I will then hand over to Suzanne. She will then take you through the process of how the Shadowmatch system assists companies and individuals to make this unfortunate situation as best as we can for everybody. If we have this individual on an employment path, an employed working person. So this person works towards the future, whatever the future might be, but it's a working individual. They are employed, they are busy with their day-to-day activities, and their work life is part of their general life, and it is quite an important and a very big portion of their lives. I spoke with Lizette very recently when we were at a place and people were working very operationally. And I said to her, what we must remember is these people that we are looking at now, what they do, that's their life. They start at 6 o'clock in the morning, they go home at 7 o'clock in the evenings, and they work 6 days a week. That is their life. So there's no room or space for a lot of other activities other than working and working. So, but let's take a balanced approach and say this individual is employed and a working person. There's a whole machinery around the fact that the individual is working. There's a salary, there are financial responsibilities, and. So with that in mind, what happens then? Suddenly, on a specific day, for a specific reason, and we've discussed it during our previous session, the point of notice arrives for those that are going to be retrenched. Now, obviously, this doesn't happen in every company. It happens from time to time. It happens too often, and obviously companies tend to manage this process a bit sometimes in an irresponsible way. But I think they try their best to do whatever they can to make it as good as they can for the business. Your employment ends today, so that point arrives. Sometimes it's a high impact event. The notice is when you leave office today, don't come back tomorrow. So the decision has been taken behind closed doors in a very sort of a behind the scenes meeting, and it's been announced and implemented immediately. What happens to the employees that are being impacted by this in terms of their service and their work ends at that date? We have 3 fallouts. 1 in 10,000 employees say, they walk out and they say, wonderful, I've been waiting for this day. My new life of success has just been triggered. So what they do is they've been working with this idea of, I want to do this, or I want to be there, or I have an alternative plan. And when it happens, they walk out and they say, this is the best thing that could have happened to me. In some countries, the numbers of these individuals that say that we have numbers for as 1 in 10,000 are a bit better. Some are a bit less. In other words, 1 in 12, 1 in 13, 1 in 15,000 people say this is fantastic. In some areas and in some countries, it's as low as 1 in 5,000. But it seems like a 1 in 10,000 average is about as good as we will get. It is so little. The numbers are so small that we cannot actually calculate it as a percentage. For the rest, 40% of individuals, they report that it feels as if my life has stopped. They report the feeling of my life came to a stop. I got stuck and I can't move. My life in general, not only my working life, but my life in general comes to a stop. And the reason for that is, and it's very obvious if we think about it, how they report on it. They say, I've got to stop my membership at the gym. I've got to stop my participation in this event. I've got to stop this. I've got to stop this. I've got to stop these events for my children. I've got to stop. So the fact that they've lost their employment gives them the feeling that my life came to a standstill and to a stop. So it's very important to also be aware of the fact that it has an identity crisis for the individual, because our identities are very strongly embedded in the work we do. Then 60%, so this is how an impact that is not that severe, but it's severe enough that we must attend to it. 60% report that they feel like they have failed. I'm a failure. I hate work and the world in general. So they develop a resentment. They become aggressive. They have a feeling of hatred towards the world, because what they say is, this is not because of my wrongdoing. It is not my fault. The mistake that was made is not under my control. I've been caught in the crossfire of a situation that I am not the author of. So then the next one that we must keep in mind is that this point of notice, this where the individual is being notified that your employment comes to an end, that event, the impact on the employee depends on 5 aspects. The process of ending the employment is the most important of all of it. The rest is actually, how do we pick up the pieces and how do we hold this together once it happened? But the process of ending the employment from an employer's perspective is the most critical point to either prevent or manage the process towards an optimal outcome. So if that process is not properly managed and the engagement with the retrenched employees is not proper, then we have very bad and very negative results. Support provided by the employer once this has been announced? What is the support that is being provided by the employer? Support from close relatives and professional support like coaching, and then the internal ego strength of the individual. How strong am I to take this knock? So the internal, my inner strength as an individual, which obviously differs from person to person. To what level am I strong enough to absorb this and to deal with it and to carry on in a positive way? Now, I just might want to make a note. The second point there, support provided by the employer. The problem is that once the employer has ended the employment, there's a relationship of hostility if it's not properly managed. And then support from the employer becomes impossible because the relationship has now been compromised to such a point that the employee that has been retrenched feels a hostility from the employer. And that's not a good relationship for support once this has happened. What we then have is once the individuals have been notified that their employment stops, most people do one of the following. We can work, I struggle to get a figure of percentages here, but it seems like about 95% of people do one of the following 5 things. And if you want to hear what the other 5% do, you can ask me afterwards, and I will tell you what the numbers and the rest, the 5%, 95% either take early retirement, they start their own business, they become job seekers, they seek for a new job. If possible, they take a break from work. In other words, it might be somebody that's married to a professional person or a well-employed person, or somebody that has his or her own business. And this individual, because of the marriage with somebody that is financially stable, then just they take a break and they say, okay, I'm out of work for a period of time. It might be that they have parents and they can sort of attach for a period of time to their parents financially and take a break from work. This can happen. And then a percentage of them, especially those under the age of 35, what they do is they say to themselves, this happened because I'm not properly qualified. If I was qualified and I had the right qualifications or stronger qualifications, this wouldn't have happened to me. So these are the processes that they go through, that maybe it's because I don't have an honors degree, or I don't have this, or I don't have a degree, or I don't have this diploma or this certificate or this qualification. That's why the retrenchment process impacted me. So let me rather get the qualifications so that this doesn't happen again. So 95%, somewhere between, let's be fair, between 92 and 98% fall into these 5 unfortunate outcomes as a result of a retrenchment. So with that in mind, what then happens is the individual is at risk that things might not work out. It doesn't matter which one you take. There's always a risk. What if I take early retirement and my retirement funds are not enough and I can't make it till the end of life? What if I start my own business and it doesn't work? What if I don't get a job and 16, 18, 20 months later, I'm still unemployed? What if I take a break from work? Then I am financially dependent on somebody else, and this might not be a good idea. What if I do further studies, spend a lot of money and time, and I still do not get the job that is secure for a long-term period? So there's a risk to whatever you do. Long-term stress can develop and compromise the functional health of the individual. What happens is with functional health, what we mean is that the person is not in a condition to work. So then we get all kinds of things like medically unfit to work and the rest. But it can happen that over a period of time, and it seems to be that about 20 months is the high risk point. If somebody has been out of retrenched and not in a stable financial productive life earning situation within 20 months, we get the risk that the individual might develop functional health issues that compromise the individual's capability to carry on and go back into the workplace, because you get a point where the person cannot get himself to go back into the workplace anymore. And then we have obviously long-term challenges with that individual in terms of support and helping them. So what we must keep in mind is that the role of the employer is critical. You will remember that I said that how we manage this process is absolutely critical for the success of the post end of work period. In other words, what after this retrenchment, the post retrenchment period of work. The employer that retrenches the individuals is critical for the post point of notice carry on with a productive life. Then what the relationship support networks must do, we must, as the support network, family and friends of these individuals, provide them with tangible, functional and positive support towards building up the possibilities of earning a life and being employed at a new employer, whatever the outcome is. And then there is the leg of professional support networks, what they must do, the coaching, the process of helping the individual back on an employment or a business or a future path that works for them from a coaching perspective. So these responsibilities, all three of them, these functions have the same outcome in mind, or they must have the same outcome in mind. In other words, they must work towards the same end result, and that is to get the individual, to get these individuals back beyond the point of notice, beyond the point of retrenchment, back on their feet, working and earning a life and an income, and the success of being back into the place of earning their own living and for their family and those that are dependent on them. So the aim of all these support functions and the retrenchment process and the previous employer is exactly the same. What we must do is we must get the individual beyond this point of notice and retrenchment, back on their feet, working in a positive and a productive way, moving forward with their lives. So the aim is to help the individual to be functional, progressively working and moving forward beyond and away from the day of retrenchment. What happens, dear delegates, is that these individuals, not those really, but these individuals, they become trapped in the moment of retrenchment, and they keep on living in that state of I'm not good enough, I have failed, I have been retrenched, I have been rejected, and my life came to a halt, and I become an injured individual. So what we must do is we must get the person to live a life beyond and away from that moment of retrenchment. So we must get them back on their working feet, and they must move on with their lives and move away from this point of injury and retrenchment and notice of work and ending of work. It is the responsibility of the previous employer, the personal support networks around the individual, that is family and friends, and the professional support structures such as coaches and whatever we might have on the list. The same, we have to work together towards the same outcome, and that is to get the individual to work progressively, functional, forward, moving beyond and away the point of retrenchment. With that, thank you very much. From my side, I'm going to hand over, I think, first to Lizette. Lizette will then hand over, or can I go directly to to Suzanne. Let's see, I think we go direct to Suzanne. Suzanne will now show you something very specific, and that is how the Shadowmatch system helps everybody involved to get the individual beyond and away the point of retrenchment and the notice of ending their service in a business. With that, thank you very much. I'm willing to answer questions afterwards. Lizette will facilitate, but for now, we hand over to Suzanne. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Peter. Good day, everyone. Great to have you with us in today's session. Thank you, Peter, for today's introduction and the very insightful content in last week's webinar as well. So now that we've taken a look at the principles, let's go and see what the tangible resources are that are available to us as employers, as individuals going through this difficult process. Because as we've been saying, the manner in which the employer handles the situation can make all the difference. So we've now reached this point. It's now inevitable. We now need to lay off individuals. We need to reduce the staff. So it is a difficult situation. But if we handle that difficult situation in a more positive way, the outcome can be so much better than just leaving individuals without any support, leaving them in that experience of failure, leaving them without resources. So let's rather focus on the scenario where we say, let's utilize the resources that we have available to make this process more supportive for the individual, to help them to move forward, to see if they can, as on Peter's slide, move to the next part of the line and not stay trapped in that moment of retrenchment. Now, today I'm going to be working with the personal portal on Shadowmatch, on the Shadowmatch system. This is a portal available to anybody that has completed the Shadowmatch worksheet. Obviously, I'll be working with fictitious data, but this is something that's live, and any individual that has access to the Shadowmatch worksheet will have access to the resources I'm showing. So let's start with what is the responsibility of this employer. So if I'm the employer going through this process, what is my responsibility to help support the individual? Now, first of all, I can help the individuals that are going to be retrenched to create an optimal CV. To say, if you are going to position yourself in the workforce out there again, let's help you to physically write and construct a CV. So to help them to get that optimal CV sorted, that's step one. Step two is, let's make sure we provide positive working references to all of these individuals. So I'm the previous employer, I'm writing a positive work reference. That's one of the resources the individual can take into the future to say, the experience in this company before it's ended was positive, help them to take that step forward. So we have our CV, we have our positive working reference. Now let's see what are the resources we can add to this for that individual to make it unique for them to make sure the journey forward is sustainable. So at this point, I would like to share my screen with you. And I'm now entering a personal portal of an individual. So if I can make my CV even more tailored, even more sustainable for my unique needs, the chances of me then finding a position in future that is sustainable and a long-term fit for me is better. If I understand my unique makeup, if I understand what are my demands and how I engage with my environment, I can support myself and manage this difficult situation more effective versus doing this blindly. So step one would be in the Shadowmatch resources would be to firstly just go and give all of the individuals their personal feedback report on the Shadowmatch system. So this means the individuals would complete the Shadowmatch worksheet, and then the end result of the worksheet is their unique profile of their habits. So you'll see on the screen, we have different words here at the bottom. It's the specific constructs measured by the Shadowmatch worksheet, specific habits or patterns of behaviors. So you would see propensity to own, resilience, all the way through to leadership. And then on the screen, you will see this is one individual score, a fictitious individual. This is her unique intensity combinations of the various patterns. So what the full report does is it explains to the individuals, how do you approach your environment? What is your preferences as an individual? What is the intensities? How are the different habits embedded? And how do you engage your environment? So understanding myself in this process equips me to understand myself in this difficult situation. And then this is obviously also a report I can attach to my CV and say, listen, this is me. I've done this journey of insight and self-learning, and this is how I approach my environment, and see which of my habits are embedded to a stronger extent. So you'll see on the screen, you can read it interactively. So if I, for instance, click on this, I read my description of my unique habit for discipline, in which category does it fall, and what does that actually mean for me, understanding the habit of discipline within my life. But if I want to grab the full report, everything, not just the interactive one, I simply click on download, and you'll see it's generating a PDF report for me. And in this PDF report, it's everything I'm seeing on the screen in one document. So everything I need to know about all of my habits, together with the graph at the bottom. So that would be step one. Ideally, if there is time in this process. So Peter also mentioned it, sometimes it might be, okay, tomorrow is the end of this process. But ideally, the previous employer should plan for this, to say we need to send our ex-employees prepared into the future. So if there's time, let someone go through them through this report. So it's a supported process. It's not needed. The report has all of the detail the individual would need. But if you just want to add that support to it, to make sure someone explained this to them, went through the report with them, on their personal portal, there are various resources to help them to understand this as well. So if I'm just going to click back, you'll see there's videos for me to help me to interpret this own report. So if I'm looking at my own results, what am I seeing? What does it mean for me? But ideally, if it's possible in the process, make sure you're planned, that it's not just leaving the individuals in the dark. Okay, so back to our report. This is report one. This is my unique habits, the way you approach your environment, the habits together with the attitude, together with all of the elements measured by the Shadowmatch worksheet. That would be the personal report that's part of the resource package you can provide to these individuals. Now, once we have this in place, we can generate other reports to support this process. Now, the first report I want to focus on is the career report. So if we have this understanding, the unique habit intensities of the individual, we can then generate a career report for the individual. Now, this is probably one of the most vital reports for this process, because it helps that individual in any career, in any point in their career journey. We now know where this individual is in their career journey. It's ended at a previous employer, to embark on an optimal, sustainable career for them. So the career report takes them through all of the unique aspects that they need to make sure is part of their future career. The unique elements that need to be in place to make sure it's a sense of fulfillment, it's a sense of sustainability in that career journey. So it's not just leaving them in the dark to say, okay, where should I start now? Should I just look at a newspaper and look at vacancies, or what can I actually do for me that makes sure this is a sustainable fit? So the career report has different sections. You'll see it's a very interactive report. So in each section, there would be a video that explains what is meant in the report. So obviously the written words would be the content for that individual. It's not a generic report. So all of the specific paragraphs would be unique and linked back to that individual's unique habits. But in the report, you have sections as, for instance, the Industry 4.0 works. So make sure the next career you're choosing is sustainable to go into the future. A whole video explaining it, and then different sections linking back to the habits, for instance, what the broad focus of their career should be. So if I click on this, it'll show me my unique position to say, should I be working with people? Should I be working with objects and tasks? Should I be working with ideas? And what is my unique balance in this? So if you're familiar with the Shadowmatch system, you would know we don't work with labels or boxes, or it can be all of the unique variances and intricacies in between. So it would show me exactly my unique balance of these? Should I have an element of all of this in this, or should I just be focusing in one of these aspects? My report would guide me to understand this, gives me that video, gives me my position to make sure I'm thinking of my career sustainable, gives me the ideas that I can map in my career journey. So let's just scroll down and see a bit more of the detail. There's different aspects, the stable and dynamic content of my career, the practical and theoretical content. In each, there would be a video. In each, there would be my unique position, the complexity index of my career. And then at the bottom, you will find important career tips for that specific individual, linking back to their habits. To say, make sure these habits are critical in your working environment. Make sure it's part of the day-to-day engagements, and make sure you might steer away the focus from these specific habits, because sustainably it might fatigue you if the focus is there. So it explains everything for the individual to make sure they understand their career journey. And then at the very bottom, you'll find resources to help you with mapping your new career. So a career map that you can map out all of the elements you've learned in your report, as well as a test your career function. If this individual is now at the point to say, I'm considering new careers, let's see what's out there, and they can test it. So you see, all of this is to help that individual to move out of this moment of failure, to move out of this intense moment of, okay, it feels like my world has ended, to say, but let me open the door to the future. And this career report helps them to start in a very practical, very tangible way, to start crafting that journey and not just feel that they're floating without any resources or support. The next report that links them to the habits is a study report. So this is if individuals do want to embark on further studies. So you'll remember on our introduction presentation, one of the options is if I want to embark on further studies to up my qualifications, because I'm now at this point of retrenchment and I'm choosing this option, how am I going to do this effective? I might have studied 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the previous time. How am I going to get back into the world of studying to make sure it's optimal and I actually get the results, that it's not an avenue where I'm just spending my income or spending my savings and it's not yielding the results that I need. So the study report, another resource for the individual based on their habits, would guide them towards the optimal study methods that fit sustainably to their habits. So once again, it would be derived from their own unique habits, not a generic report. The study report for each individual guides them through this process to say, optimally study. How are you thinking about subjects like mathematics? How are you focusing on that? What is the specific study method for you that fits with all of your unique combinations of habits? A full video explaining that, the whole process explained to say this is the optimal study method for you. And the second option there, if the individual chooses that option, also linking back optimally to their habits, a full video explaining that, and then specific tips linking back to their habits, saying, what are you doing when you're thinking about losing track of work, fatigue, poor efficiencies, all of those things for that individual to help them to find the solution if that comes up in their study journey. And then tips at the bottom as well to say, keep in mind for studying, tips for studying distance learning. So if it's online studying, if it's not face-to-face studying, how is this individual making sure that the studying is happening effectively? So at this point, what you've given the individual is you've given them the optimal CV, that reference of positive working in your environment. You've given them the Shadowmatch full report explaining their habits. You've given them the career report, helping them to craft their career journey, and you've given them the study report if they would embark on further studies. There's a different report that you can add to this resource package. It's the skills grid report. This doesn't focus on habits, it focuses on the skills of the individual. This is a fantastic report for that individual to add to their CV to say, this is my skill set. This is all of the skills I've developed, the training and everything I've gone through. This is me. This is me as your potential new candidate. So giving the potential new employer so much insight into the individual just in one package, all of the documents together. So what does a skills grid report look like? It's all visual to explain that individual's specific skill set. So what you're seeing on the screen is for this individual, their skills in 25 specific skills areas. So how you would interpret this graph, you'll see on the right, we have our key, so the number of blocks that are colored in, that would show the skills intensity. So all the way from no or limited to expert in that specific skill. So for this individual, for instance, we can see in selling, okay, 4 blocks are colored in, so highly skilled in the skill of selling. So you can also download this report that it's in a document. Here the individual can work interactively with it. And for these skill sets, you also have sub-skills that are measured in your skills grid worksheet. So they can give a complete description of what is my skills history, who am I today, and what are the skills I developed. So if you just take a look on the screen, you'll see, for instance, in verbal skills, writing skills, social media skills, this individual indicated these sub-skills. This is also a fantastic stock-taking tool for the individual to say, okay, at this point of retrenchment, this is my skill set. Is there anything I want to develop to make myself more attainable for the next employer I'm considering embarking on? So that's such a visible, tangible, once again, it's a resource that actually grounds the individual to say, you've gone through this difficult process, but here's something that can help guide you. Because I'm going to wake up on Tuesday morning and I don't need to go to work. Where do I start? This is the option. This is the option to start, to say, this is my current skill set. Is there anything I want to develop to make sure I'm upping that skill? The skills grid report is always live. So at any time, if I've developed a skill, I can go in and I can edit it and I can say, okay, great, I've taken my IT skills from low skilled to basically skilled, or to skilled or highly skilled, depending on what was my skills journey of development. So such a nice tracking resource for the individual as well. They have interactive access to this the whole time, that it's real time, and they can update the skills as they develop it. So that's the 4 main reports you would add to the individual in their resource package to say, we're helping you to see yourself going into the future of this. If the support you want to provide as an employer, you want to call on the professional support networks as well, there's an option to engage the Shadowmatch coaching platform. This would take all of these elements to the next level of support. So this is I would say the reports that should definitely be part of the process. I don't think it's an optional part of the process. That would be we're giving you these resources to facilitate the process. Bonus, or even better, if it can be facilitated with the support of professional coaches and the professional support community, as referenced in the introduction on the slides. So good news is these resources are already accessible. So it's not something where the employer should say, okay, but where on earth will we start? Where will we find service providers for this? Will the costing be impossible? No, it's already up and running. There's a support network ready for action. So if the retrenchment happens next month they can already have that support at their fingertips. What is the Shadowmatch coaching platform? It's a complete platform built for coaches to support individuals through specific coaching programs. Now, depending on the option of the individual that has been retrenched, they can embark on different coaching programs. I'm going to share 2 of them in detail with you, and then I'll show you the other ones on the platform. So the one option on the coaching platform, let's just go to our coaching platform resources, is the career coaching. Now, this would obviously be very, very applicable to these individuals to say, in my career journey, I've reached this point of retrenchment. I want to continue my career journey. Where do I start and what is my game plan? The career coaching is the game plan. It's the tangible game plan to say, step 1, what do I do? Step 2, what do I do? And the coach is trained and equipped to help facilitate this process, to say, you're feeling that you're completely floating and you're completely lost and you've gone through this difficult process. I'm here. I'm your support. I'm the coach guiding you through this process. So the career coaching, you can tailor it for the specific need of that individual in the career journey. Obviously, in this case, we're not talking about the first career I'm embarking on because I have gone through the retrenched process if I'm an individual in this specific discussion. So this would be my next phase in my career. Where am I now if my employment has ended? The career coaching completely tailors for that, to say, take it step by step to make sure we have that optimal career for the individual. Now, bonus with this is if we go through this process, we're not just going to be desperately jumping into something that's not going to be sustainable. It links back to that career report, back to my unique habits, to say, make sure the next decision we make is sustainable. And we're going to find fulfillment, that we eliminate the chance of a second failure. That's what we want to do. We don't want this to become a pattern in the individual's life. We've gone through this process of retrenchment, which was difficult, and we want to move on to the future in a positive way. And the career process can take us in this way. And now if we choose this next career, that next opportunity crossed our road, we want to make sure it's sustainable, and the career process will give me my step-by-step game plan on how do I reach this. So fantastic for that individual to keep that energy from day one, to say, where am I moving towards? What's my game plan? And you have that career coach that supports you through it. A little bit later, we'll see where you can actually find a coach if you're looking for a coach. This is just the one program on the coaching platform, is the career coaching program specifically. Other program that the individual might choose to embark on this point is the fulfillment coaching. So the fulfillment coaching helps that individual to reassess and say, how am I finding that fulfillment balance in my life? Obviously, one of the things that will come into play is the recent retrenchment. So this is where I am. But once again, not leaving the individual lost and alone without support, they can embark on the fulfillment coaching program. Fulfillment coaching would be the complete game plan to say, to get the individual from point A to point B, where they want to be in the future. What would be the process? The fulfillment coaching program takes them back to their own habits the whole time, making sure the things I'm learning in this process, the resources I'm developing, the things I'm focusing on, the strengths I'm focusing on, making sure it's all sustainable for my unique journey and my unique way I engage my environment with. So fulfillment, a very, very powerful program. This program has many phases, but the individual can choose the timeline for this. So you can actually, for 5 years, there's enough content that you can take this journey for 5 years and make sure you're developing, growing the whole time. But the timeline can be 3 months, a year, depending on the individual's need for it. Together with the coach, they would determine what is the timeline optimally for their fulfillment coaching. Now, this might feel a bit too good to be true, because I just showed you two slides here, or 2 outlines, but how does this practically work? How would a coach actually have all of this insight, embarking on this journey with this individual? This brings me to the coaching platform. So the coaching platform is the resource where the coach would have access to all of these things. The coach themselves, they log into the platform, and they would have access to training material for them, to making sure that they can optimally support the individual going through this process. So I'm an optimal career coach, I'm an optimal fulfillment coach, or the other options are optimal study method coach, or optimal PDP coach, personal development programs. So all of the different coaching options, the individual as a coach is equipped to utilize this effectively. The coach becomes part of a network of Shadowmatch coaches, where they have continuous learning engagements, where they have webinars and Q&As and continuous training to make sure that their journey as coaches is effective and optimal. So you would know, if I'm choosing to go to a Shadowmatch coach, I'm in good hands, because I know it's working on reliable resources, and it's something that speaks to my unique needs as an individual. So let's just take a look here at a fulfillment coaching program, for instance. So I'm William Wallace. I am the individual that went through the process of the retrenchment at my previous employer, and now I've started this journey with my Shadowmatch coach. My Shadowmatch coach would have a complete breakdown of my game plan to help me to come from this point to a positive point in the future. In each phase, we would have all the resources we need. So we work on the principle of mind, meet, move. So in each phase, the individual, so William, the individual doing the coaching, will have to think about things and actually do some mind work, some preparation, some thinking of, okay, what are we working through in this phase? I would meet with my coach to discuss this and actually unpack what we're learning in this phase and to get that actual game plan of what am I going to do to take me over into action and not get stuck in this moment. We go through the move phase. So what am I actually doing in phase 1? In each of these phases, we would do this. We might meet, move, and the move process is my game plan to get me from where I'm now to where I want to be. Obviously, depending on my coaching program, the content would differ. So this would be fulfillment coaching, but if I choose the career content, my first phase would have a different move function, a different meet function, depending on my unique habits and depending on where I am in the journey. For the coach to have other resources like performance evaluation and a place where they can keep notes and a bunch of great things, but just be sure or just be certain that you as the individual choosing to embark on this journey of a Shadowmatch coach, your coach is optimally supported to optimally support you through this process. So if you are interested in finding a coach, where would you go? You would go to shadowmatchcoaches.com. That's a website where all of the coaches that choose to be public. So if you use the Shadowmatch platform, you can choose if you want to be publicly accessible. So meaning anybody out there can find you as a coach and connect with you to go on this journey. Or do you prefer to be a private coach where you don't show on this public page, but you utilize the resource with your private clients? Obviously the coach's preference, but you'll see this is the website where you can find all of the detail about the coaches. There's great detail about the coach, what's their specific focus, their bio, so you can choose the coach that would optimally fit your specific needs in this time where you want to move on from the retrenchment. So that's the Shadowmatch coaches. So just to summarize our resources up until now, we're helping this individual as the previous employer to say, okay, let's give you resources to help you come through this process, the point of retrenchment, and see yourself going into the future. We've went through all of the reports at the access of the employer to give to that specific individual to help them in that process. If we want to link to the professional support network, we can then engage in the coaching process where we either do career coaching or fulfillment coaching to formally generate that game plan to help that individual going through this. A few important things to keep in mind. The energy of the individual to work. We should make sure that is kept up, that's not completely lost and the individual can't envision themselves engaging in a positive way with the working environment again. So if in the interim, if whilst we're in this process of crafting my new career, whilst I'm sending out my CV, my optimal CV with my Shadowmatch and my skills grid report attached to it, whilst in this process, I want to engage something to keep my energy up. A few options to keep in mind are things that don't need a capital investment at the start, because at this point, the individual might not have the resources to now invest resources and money into a different venture, so that feels unattainable. So there are options where you don't need that. You don't need an influx of capital at the start. Think about options like freelancing, like administration, like just helping part-time at a school or at any institution, just to help that individual to keep that energy up. Now, the good news is we actually have a few options at Shadowmatch that can help an individual in this stage. It might start off with an interim thing where they say, you know, just for now, I'm just doing this, but it might become a full-time thing for the individual, or it might become a long-term thing for the individual, even if they've embarked on a different career journey or a career journey back into their space of focus. They might continue to keep this. This has happened in the past where individuals just started off part-time and years later, they're still engaged with the Shadowmatch network. Now, the first option here is a Shadowmatch promoter. So this is the option where you say, I, at this point, have had exposure to the Shadowmatch system. I know what the Shadowmatch system is about. I can see the value in it. If I want to promote this to other institutions, to other organizations, other businesses, there should be something in it for me. If I believe in this and I tell people about this, I hope there's something in it for me. this is something that's in it for the individuals. It's our way of saying thank you to individuals that promote the system and the reports and our resources wider into the community. So if you go to shadowmatch.com, this is our information website. You can find this option at 2 points. You can either go to Shadowmatch, then you'll see at the bottom there's a become a promoter option. Or if you go to the contact us page, you'll see there's an option to become a promoter as well there. So this will take me to exactly the same page. On this page, I have all the information I need. So if you know about someone that's gone through this retrenchment process, or if you're joining in today and you're yourself interested in this, welcome to send them to this page. This little 2-minute video explains the process completely. How does it work? What is a Shadowmatch promoter? What is it in it for you? And the T's and C's. The T's and C's are also written here. It's basically just saying make sure it's your employer is happy with this. If you've gone through the unfortunate event of the retrenchment, then you don't have to worry about your previous employer. So then it's just you and the promoter. But basically what a Shadowmatch promoter is if they position the Shadowmatch system to a party and they give that lead to the Shadowmatch head office, and that client or organization then signs up, the Shadowmatch promoter earns 10% income or commission of the client's usage for the lifetime of the client. So that's what I mentioned earlier. It might become a long-term thing where you say, listen, this works for me. It's an income stream that I'm utilizing. So this is an option that's already accessible. And then the last option is, if you are interested in coaching, if you as the individual that have been retrenched and your journey with this specific company or employer has ended, and you feel that you have a heart or an interest in coaching and you want to share your expertise and you want to develop yourself as a coach, it is an option to then sign up yourself as a Shadowmatch coach. So you then become the coach in the scenario. You would be equipped with all of the resources. We've shown all of the training and the support network to help you to get up to skill to become a coach, helping other individuals in scenarios like this or in any of the other coaching avenues. So we do have those options available. As you see, it's live. So the moment you're ready, you can click on the screen. The moment you're ready to say, I want to become a Shadowmatch coach, you can click on the sign up option and become part of the Shadowmatch coaching network to start training and start utilizing that great resource. Okay, thanks, Lizette. That's all from my side. A quick run through for all of the positive resources to help in this unfortunate scenario. You'll see all of these resources really linked to the heart of Shadowmatch to say we're valuing the individuals to make sure that we're eliminating the failure manifesting in that individual and we're engaging the positive future to help get positive individuals out there. Thanks, Lizette. All from me.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Thank you very much, Peter, for another insightful presentation and session. I think one of the important things that I take from this is, and especially aimed at the coaches, if you are currently helping someone that has gone through a retrenchment process or somebody that joined us today that have been retrenched or are currently in the process of being retrenched, I think one of the most important things you said, Suzanne, is to keep the person's energy going. It can be so easily depleted if somebody submits their CV to many organizations and they just don't get an interview, or they go to interviews and they just don't get appointed. It's very often clever to do something freelance, even to get involved in a charity, even if it's for no income, but to keep the person feeling that they are worthy and that they mean something to the world around them. So for coaches, I think that was a very good tip. The most important thing, whilst the person is seeking for another job, some of them actually use the opportunity to start their own business. But if they are seeking for another job or employment, because that's what they really want to do, is to help them to maybe do something in the interim, just to keep the energy going. So thank you very much. That was very insightful, and I think a very good comment amongst all the others. From my side, dear participants, I will stop the recording now, and then I will enable the setting for you to ask your questions or to just engage in a discussion.